Welcome everybody to this breakout room on fostering community well-being, innovation and quality. We've got about 6 practice presentations here today divided into 2 sessions. So we're going to start with 3 presentations about cultivating a sense of community through remote interaction to ensure student well-being. We've got 3 great speakers with us here today. Neill Wylie from Delft University of Technology and Waterford Institute of Technology in Ireland, Sanna Kivimäki from Tampere University in Finland, and Sinead Spain and Mary Fitzpatrick from the University of Limerick in Ireland. That's going to be the first 3 presentations, each about 7 minutes, and then we'll have Q&A about those presentations. Then we go into the second part, which will be about going towards long-term sustainable innovation and quality in learning and teaching. Also 3 presentations there. Run by Oscar Núñez Pucio from the University of Barcelona in Spain, one by Jonathan Shaw and Daniel Villan-Onrubia from Coventry University in the UK, and then lastly but not least, presentation by Manuel Joa Costa and Rui Lima from the University of Minho. All right, we're going to start with the first one. I will just remind you that throughout the entire session, you're able to ask questions through the presenters through the Q&A tab. Like I said, we'll compress all the questions together for one part after the first 3 presentations and then another one after the second batch of 3 presentations. But you can ask questions throughout that will make this Q&A part a bit more fluent as well. And you can vote on each other's question as well to let us know which questions have the most attention and the most requests to ask. So, with that in mind, we can go to the first presentation by Neill Wylie on boosting connectedness in times of COVID using Minecraft at Delft University of Technology. Neill, it's up to you.
Many thanks, Ruben. I'll just share my screen. And Ruben, if you can give me a quick shout that you can see my slides.
Yes, we can. Right now we see your Google Slides screen, and now we see your slides loading on full screen, and they're ready. Yes.
Super. Thank you. So good morning, everyone from a very stormy and windy Ireland. I'm going to present on the Minecraft Virtual Campus, which was a project I led during my time at TU Delft and Leiden Delft, an Erasmus Centre for Education. So the outline, I'll give you a quick talk about the conception of the project and what led to us to actually come up with this. Mining the TU Delft campus, the processes, the team that we recruited and the management of that, the Minecraft campus in use, and then I'll talk very briefly about the Southeast Technological University, which is opening up here in the southeast of Ireland, and our plans for a Minecraft campus there. So the Minecraft project conception, what is Minecraft? Some people don't know what it is, many people do. But basically, the sentence, if you can dream it, you can build it, is one that kind of, for me, personifies Minecraft. It's a sandbox video game developed by Mojang, a Danish company. Players create, build, mine, and survive in 3D generated worlds. And the purpose, it's kind of a game without a purpose, really. The purpose is just to build and explore procedurally generated terrain. So you don't kind of defeat bosses or level up or anything like that. And this is kind of the thing that hooks people on it. You can just roam around and do whatever you want. It's the best-selling video game of all time, with 140 million monthly active users in 2021. And the average gamer is actually 24, much to my 6-year-old's disappointment. So it's not just a game for kids. So the Minecraft Campus project, we conceived the idea in June 2020 when I was working as a project manager for the Leiden Delft Erasmus Centre for Education and Learning at TU Delft. And the idea was to connect students with the campus via Minecraft. There was intense uncertainty and isolation at that time, as you'll all know well. And we wanted to see how we could boost connectedness among our students, get them to meet again, get them to come out of themselves, even if it was virtually. The other thing was we wanted to create an emotional connection with the university. This was big over in the US at the time, where we saw students were building their dorms and their local bars and their universities as well. And the US students tend to have more of an emotional connection to their university than we would say in Europe. So we wanted to see if we could harness that and also provide a firm footing for new students and allow ownership of builds. So something for students by students. So why did we choose Minecraft? Certainly 21st century skills, boosting, collaboration, critical problem solving and digital citizenship were high up on our list. It allows for collaborative projects among students and super creativity. It also supports the STEM subjects. And a lot of these subjects here were subjects that we were teaching at Delft at the time. So it did fit in quite well there. So mining the TU Delft campus, the team, so we recruited 6 TAs, teaching assistants with experience in playing Minecraft. It was the best job they ever had because they got paid, I think it was €12 an hour to play Minecraft. 1 computer science student who set up the servers, one communications TA for promotions, getting the message out there. I had access to 2 PhDs at LDE Cell, and I was the project manager. So the build, how do we do it? We used Google Maps, geodata, official blueprints, images, 360 tours, anything we could get our hands on. We actually got the official blueprints, which was incredible. We never thought we'd get access to that to construct a lifelike campus to scale. So it actually is built to scale. The TU Delft Minecraft servers were set up, and we had to keep kind of increasing the power of them to cope with the build as it got bigger. A Discord server, which is a gamer server that was created for communications and the process joining students. So students wouldn't directly go to the campus. They would come into the server via Discord, kind of nearly induct them sort of there, do any Q&As, and we had kind of roboticized answers for them and stuff like that. And then they would get access to the campus. The how-to manual then was created as it grew bigger. And it officially opened on the 6th of December 2020 by Vice Rector Professor Rob Mudda. This is a very short clip of one part of the build. So here's the TU Delft library. It's quite a famous library and was built by a famous architect. And you can see we've tried to make it as real to life as we could there on the left. This is the Pulse Carbon Neutral building. This is the 3ME building. And this is the teaching lab where I worked. And this is a very messy project management sheet when you're working with a lot of TAs. And this is how we kind of ran the project using Kanban boards. A couple of milestones we featured in the Tweakers magazine in July 2020, which is quite a famous Dutch kind of tech magazine. We completed an immersive campus tour in November. The mayor of Delft actually retweeted a post on it asking us to build Delft, which we didn't at the time, but who knows what will happen in the future. And as I said, Rob Mudda opened it in December, and we linked the Erasmus Rotterdam campus in January. They were also building one as well. So the campus in use, phase one was create attachment, campus tours, familiarize new staff and students with the campus onboarding. So let faculties take over the campus for an onboarding event. At one point, we had 400 students doing it. Celebrations and ceremonies, graduations, and community building. So just giving them this hangout spot to create that emotional attachment. So that was phase one. And this is a map of the tour. You can see all the points that the students could stop in. We had an automated tour guide who would bring them around and let them discover the campus for themselves. This is a short clip of the tour. They had to solve problems and stuff like that as they went along and find a missing student and rent a book from the library. Second phase was pedagogical affordances. So it featured in an education technology course at TU Delft with Professor Marcus Specht. Computer organization students were tasked with developing a module, learning about logic gates and truth tables via the virtual campus. A MOOC I was creating, a DelftX Research Methods MOOC, featured Minecraft campus as a learning activity, and the Faculty of Architecture played around with it a lot because it really lent itself well to their line of work. Phase three is expanding applicability. Minecraft Edu Hack, so coming up with a hackathon to engage educators and detail the affordances of it and allow students to solve real life problems pitched by lecturers. So they'd use the Minecraft campus to demonstrate the solutions. For example, create post-COVID campus, combat student dropout rates, gamification, escape rooms, all these sort of things we're looking to do in the third phase. The Southeast Technological University here back in Ireland, so now I'm working at WIT, Waterford Institute of Technology. Two institutes are amalgamating, Carlow and Waterford, and it's becoming the Southeast TU. So I have a proposal in at the moment to link these campuses via Minecraft and create a sense of belonging among students and create cohesion. And that's about it, guys. Thanks very much. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have later.
All right. Thank you so much, Neill. Now we can go to the next presentation. We have Sanna Kivimäki from Tampere University in Finland, and they will be presenting a case from that university on balancing the flexibility of studies and the well-being of students. All right, Sanna, I see that you're here. It's up to you.
Yes, thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm Sanna Kivimäki from Tampere University, and Eila Pajare will be giving the talk together with me, but I will be starting to tell you about a few actions that we have done in our university to ensure the balance of flexibility of studies and, on the other hand, the well-being of students. So firstly, about our university, it's a relatively new university. It was formed 3 years ago, roughly. when two universities that previously existed in Tampere merged, and currently we are the second largest university in Finland with 7 faculties, a multidisciplinary university with around 20,000 students. And here you can see one slide from Tampere University strategy 2030, where we state that we will develop excellent services to support learning and teaching. And this strategy we are implementing with different kind of actions that we will now briefly show you 2 projects that we have been running in the last couple of years since the merge. So as a little bit of background, in our university, we are seeing that the needs of students are getting more diverse. We get more continuous learners and also students who are maybe already in working life. So we need to have individual and flexible paths to decrease. And to make this happen, we need digitalization of education so that we can offer hybrid and high flex opportunities and online teaching. But at the same time, especially now in the last couple of years with the pandemic, the student welfare has gone down, and the students feel that they are not getting enough interaction with other students. So we have to kind of, we have been thinking of ways how to support the teachers in guaranteeing the pedagogical quality of hybrid and high flex and online teaching, and also supporting the teachers in increasing the interaction between the students and between the teachers and students. And we will now tell you about 2 projects. So firstly, Eila will be telling about our Flip and Learn project.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we have been using many difficult pedagogical methods, but we wanted to try how the flipped learning will suit in our technological education. And we started this pilot 3 years ago, and it has spread after that, so that at the time currently altogether 100 teachers are being involved with flipped learning. And we have a special professor who is specialized in flipped learning, who will be giving guidance to those teachers who are interested in trying flipped learning in their courses. And we support the faculties and teachers in a way that if there's a teacher who would try to take and transfer a traditional course into flipped learning mode, the teacher will be giving about 12,015 euros worth the time for developing his or her course. So, and the faculty will find somebody who will take that teacher's teaching responsibilities for the time that that particular teacher is developing his or her course. And we have had good results from this flipped learning. We have been doing research all the time. We have been developing and piloting these courses, and we have found out that it affects students' interest towards the subjects, and it increases the students' self-regulation skills. It increases the students' integration towards the university, and probably the most important thing at the time of COVID, it has reduces the feeling of loneliness. So because there are no traditional large lectures and students doing the work all alone, instead they are doing the work together in groups, so they get to know each other and they are discussing with the teacher instead of the teacher just traditionally lecturing. So that's why this year we have decided to put emphasis on this flipped learning in a way that we increase it in our first year students' education, because we have found out that it's at the most useful when the students start their studies in a university. Thank you.
Okay, then back to me. Our second quite large strategic action in the last couple of years has been that we have been building this teaching and learning center, which is a place that gathers all the support for teachers that we have on offer in our university. So it supports pedagogical development. We organize courses. This teaching and learning center, it's coordinated from the support services for education and learning, but we are working with our faculties. For example, our language center has been giving courses about how to increase interaction and communication skills of teachers in online teaching. And our ITC faculty has been organizing courses to support teachers in using different kind of learning systems and technological side of the teaching. So we are working together with the faculties and different support services and bring all the support to teachers from this one place. And in the last slide, you can see our the web page for the Teaching and Learning Center. So we thank you now and hope that you will visit our web pages and see how we have been organizing this support for teachers. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Sanna and Ayla, for this presentation. For the next presentation, we'll go back to Ireland with Signat Spain and Mary Fitzpatrick. They will present a student as partners approach in a wholly online program from the design and development to the delivery. All right, Mary and Signat, it's up to you.
Thank you, Ruben. As Ruben mentioned, I'm the Research Fellow for a cross-institutional project, which is funded by the Higher Education Authority in Ireland and supported with Mary Fitzpatrick, the head of our Centre for Transformative Learning here at the University of Limerick. So today we'd like to share with you our journey on how we've embedded student partnerships for feedback in an online learning community, and with a focus on meeting the needs of the students on the programme, but also to show how this process can help build collaborative online communities and what we learned along the way. So we know that feedback is an essential component to our teaching, and when we seek feedback from our students, we aim to use this information to improve the learning experience. But for many, the feedback loop is not satisfactorily resolved. And while the pandemic has presented many challenges, it's clear that partnerships between faculty and students have contributed to many of the changes that we've seen in the online learning environments today. And these efforts should continue, or we risk losing these valuable perspectives. So this, coupled with an increased requirement for transformative pedagogies and the demand that we collaborate where possible, aligns students as partners approaches to international best practices with the potential to transform the relationship between students and staff. We identified the Masters in Artificial Intelligence as the target programme for the study. So this was a new programme in the University of Limerick, but also the first of its kind in Ireland within an emerging field of computer science. And these graduate professionals seek these specialised programmes that have been developed in collaboration with industry and designed for working professionals. And this programme was also delivered in collaboration with industry experts. So feedback was crucial to ensure that this programme could meet the needs of the student and provide them with an authentic learning experience based on these industry trends. So this presented our opportunity to embed the students as partners process with the aim of maintaining the programme as innovative, but also to build a cohesive online learning community. So I met with the programme leaders and tutors and moderators for the programme to initiate the process and to outline the benefits and the challenges and to seek their buy-in. I then met with the students during their orientation meeting to share the process with them and to invite them to volunteer, to become involved. Once I had some volunteers, then I met with them to discuss what they could achieve and gave them a tour of the online environment. And one of the things that the student volunteers had was autonomy over all of the communication channels within this virtual environment, so that they could communicate with their peers autonomously and to gather feedback. And when they gathered this feedback, they consolidated and anonymized the feedback and submitted it back to the tutor, who then reviewed it and met with the class afterwards, or the class as a whole, to gather wider agreement with the points made in the feedback, and then to see how these changes could be used to benefit the students themselves, but also to be used within a programme review to benefit the programme then overall. So there are three core drivers to the success of this partnership. Obviously, the students themselves who led the process and dedicated their time to consolidate the feedback. And there are workload and time constraints for this type of activity, but we replaced an existing feedback channel to reduce the level of additional work, which could present a barrier to engagement for these practices. Having more than one volunteer also helped reduce the workload and shared the responsibility of driving the process at the student level. And a dedicated independent mediator was also crucial for building trust in the process and a rapport with the students, and facilitating anonymity and maintaining the momentum throughout the semester, both at faculty and student level. So that being said, then obviously then faculty support is also a key driver, both in terms of supporting the process initially with the students, but also in reviewing the feedback that could potentially be critical of their teaching practice, with a view to using this information to improve the learning experience. And what we found was introducing the feedback process during the orientation meeting, where the tutors and moderators were present, added weight and importance to this type of partnership, but also created the platform that helped activate these online learning communities. And this benefited not only the students as a whole, but also the student volunteers when they then had to reach out to their peers. And another thing that was particularly useful on this particular programme was that industry practices such as agile project management principles takes a similar approach to students as partners practices. And this was extremely beneficial in helping the students understand what was expected for them in terms of the quality and the feedback that they provide, but also to help them become familiar with the process more quickly. And the students themselves then could benefit from the online communities, as it gave them a huge opportunity to network with their peers in a very niche industry. And this wouldn't have been possible in their programme because the subgroup structure of the programme itself. So the impact of individual studies can take a long time to evidence, and student partnerships in the online environment is more inclusive and benefited this programme through the contributions made by these students with industry experience. And in this study, the programme team won the University Teaching Excellence Award in Team Teaching category in 2020 for their collaborative approach to the teaching and learning excellence. And there's huge scope for the potential of this type of collaboration. This is just one lens that we've reviewed, but there is also potential to include students not just in feedback, but also in curriculum design and assessment, and also in blended and online programmes. So our institutional strategy has placed a focus on students as co-creators, and this will help drive this type of initiative within UL. And at a national level, we aim to further the scope of this through higher education networks by building communities of practice where tutors can come together to discuss their experiences and knowledge, as well as sharing resources and research, and potentially develop a national recognition award for the students themselves. This is just some of the references that we've used throughout this project. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you so much for this really interesting presentation, Sanna. Okay, we've had our first three presenters now, so it's time for some questions. I've seen that quite a few questions have been asked in the Q&A already. Just remind you, you can still send them in and also vote on them so that we know which have most attention and which you want most to be answered. So I'm going to ask our other presenters, actually Neill, already to turn on their camera as well to be here with us to answer the questions. I'm going to start with a question for Neill. Of a question from Lisa Shear. Did you collect any feedback by students about the project? What did they have to say about it? Did they evaluate it somehow?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Lisa. We did during the process of having the students use the campus. So on the Discord server, we gave them a voice to come up with solutions or come up with kind of if there were any glitches, they could let us know, or if they had any ideas for ways and means that we could use the campus, they could let us know. So we were very keen to have the students as partners, just to paraphrase Sinead there, and make sure that they could kind of have a voice, because it was for them. So there was a round where we left some faculties unbuilt, such as architecture, because we knew the architecture students would love to build that. And we just said, does anyone want to create their faculty and come in and we could provide support? So there was a dialogue. Structured feedback, not really. I think just getting the campus ready and finding ways and means that it could be used, that took up most of our time. But it is something that definitely I'd be interested in doing in the future and writing up something on it, because it is very interesting and topical.
All right, thank you. I see that another question to you was also posed by Maria Kelo about whether there's a plan to keep using it when students go back to campus. I saw that you answered it shortly already, but I'm going to invite you to give a bit of a longer answer as well.
Yeah, so that is the question. In the Netherlands, they actually had quite a strict lockdown until I think mid-January. So the students were still doing remote learning. They locked down strictly in mid-December again. So all campus education hasn't really come back yet, whereas in other European countries it has, probably more so. That's what I'm being told. So I would say when things do settle down and lecturers again have the time to give to such a project, to go in and see the affordances and see how it could be applied within their context, that's how it would be used. We do see it as a tool to enhance learning, to supplement learning, not to kind of take the place of learning. So we could set up a situation where the project team could work as consultants to faculties who wish to use it and see how we go from then. Thanks for the question.
Okay, and just so everybody can see this answer as well, do you have any report or anything published about the project that you can share somehow?
There's nothing published to the best of my knowledge. I think this is something that they want to structure. The thing is, with the TAs we had when they graduated or when they moved off, we kind of lost our base team. So it's with the Leiden Delft Erasmus Centre for Educational Learning at the moment. And I'm sure something will come of it. It would be a shame if it didn't. But we'll see what the future holds, maybe.
All right, well, from the chat and from the questions, I think many people would be interested to hear more about this project and see how they can take inspiration from this for their own universities as well.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Neill. I see a few questions for Sanna as well about and Ayla about the Flip and Learn project. Did the faculty members have to submit any kind of proposal to get this funding and this time to redesign their course? Can you give a bit of explanation about this process?
Yes, I think that Ayla can maybe answer better than I can.
Yes, we have once a year an application round where then evaluate the applications and then choose the courses. And we try to choose that kind of courses which have the most great impact, so that as many students as possible can utilize from this. And we also try to have some kind of variation so that they are from different fields as well.
Okay, so the time and the thought on how to redesign the course, that really there wasn't as much of a proposal beforehand as it was worked out once the course was selected, I suppose.
They will be given time when the courses have been selected, and this has been a crucial point, because many teachers are interested in developing their courses, but the lack of time is often the problem. So when they are given this 2 months time to concentrate on how to turn the course into flipping mode, and we have a dedicated professor who will help the teachers. So this is kind of a good concept, that they have been given time, resources and help, and they will be receiving help throughout the first year. And after that, when they are implementing the course, so they are not doing it alone. And that's, I think, one of the success behind our flipping pilot.
Yeah, and I can also answer to the question that I can now see that about the how was this received from the management point of view. This actually was kind of the top management designed or decided that they want us to kind of have quite a big project on this and support flipped learning, and this the money comes from this kind of educational development funding that we get. So part of this funding that we yearly get for developing education, we use for this flipped and learn project. So this is very much endorsed by the education management, and I think that what comes to if everyone sees the benefits straight away, maybe not, but because we do it this way, that we always have this application round, we get the teachers who see the benefits and want to do this, and we get them involved. And it's quite obvious that when this kind of goes on, we get more and more applications each year, I think, because more the teachers who are doing this, and they tell other teachers that, oh, it was really nice to concentrate a couple of months for developing my courses, and then maybe other teachers get interested in the opportunity.
And we started it 3 years ago with mathematics, and there were a group of mathematics teachers who developed this course in the flipping mode all together. And I met them in December when they had gone through the courses for the first time, and they said that it's so important for them that they will never get back, because they said that the results are so much better, and they also are so much empowered from what they are doing, that they will continue with the projects or without the projects, because they know that that's something they want to continue.
That is very great to hear. Of course, that the students, that those teachers feel so great about getting the opportunity to properly redesign their course. I'm wondering maybe as well, do you feel that you're able to reach more teachers who would otherwise not maybe take the initiative to redesign their course by having this program?
I guess so. At least when I have been looking at the applications, I can see names of teachers that I haven't seen before, because normally you get the kind of maybe same teachers involved in different kind of projects, and now there has been some completely new teachers coming to this Flip and Learn project. And we also always promote it through the management of the faculties. So the vice deans of education always kind of spread the word in the faculties that now you can apply for this project. So this is also a way of getting new teachers to come.
Yeah, and to be honest, when our students hear that they have arrived on a course which will be organized by Flipped, they are not at all so enthusiastic. But when the course is over, many of them, or at least I'd say that most of them, think that after all it was a good thing, but the first reaction is not at all.
I think that they quite often think that it's more work, but then
and it is,
but then in the end they can see the benefits.
Yes, it will pay back.
Yeah, that was honestly a thought that popped into my head when listening to it as well. Like when you would, do you see that as an ideal situation that all the courses would be redesigned this way? Or do you think, well, maybe there's a balance, and such project will also be organized for other different types of alternative pedagogies?
Of course.
Yes, for sure. For
Absolutely.
Sure, there's a balance. It doesn't fit to everything, and we also have kind of different kind of support mechanisms for problem-based learning and challenge-based learning. So it's not the only method that we are supporting.
And that's why we have this application round, so we can choose the appropriate courses on appropriate places in degrees.
All right. I see that there was a question that you already answered in the field, but maybe you can say just a bit more about this as well. Like how many people, how many teachers were able to flip their courses in this project, and how long did it take them to do this actually on average?
Currently, we have about 100 teachers, and it takes about 2 to 3 months to transfer the course from traditional mode to a flipping mode. And of course, it needs some work during the course as well, but this preparation work is about 2 to 3 months.
And are they able the teachers able to, they get this time and this funding to do this, but they of course also have other obligations like research. How is the balance with those other obligations in their career?
Well, I think that they probably do research at the same time. It's just when they get the funding, the faculty can hire another teacher to do their courses in this 2 or 3 month period, and they can use the time that they would be using for teaching. They can use that time for developing the course instead of teaching, and they can carry on doing their research in the same way as they would if they were teaching.
And the teacher can also quite flexibly during the calendar year choose when is the appropriate time for developing the course. So it's not fixed that we will not say that you will be doing it from March to May, but they can choose it quite freely.
Yeah, and also actually, for example, the teachers of mathematics who started, they have been doing quite a lot of research on just this, how they are publishing about this project, how it has affected their teaching and the results and the learning of the students.
All right. I see another question has popped up into our Q&A box from Jonathan Shaw. If you can explain anything more about how the institutions balances the opt-in with central drivers. I have to say, I suppose that Jonathan didn't specify for whom it was. I think it's for you. Is this question clear for you, or maybe Jonathan can clarify it a little bit as well further?
Yes. Apologies, Ruben. That would have been useful, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we face at Coventry is always that balance between where we're creating difference and therefore where students may be being taught by various lectures, how you balance that opt-in approach where those educators who often seek out those opportunities will jump onto those and they make the time for those. And for a student, often that can lead to very different experiences. So I was keen to hear, as it's a constant challenge for ourselves, just how I guess each panel member has dealt with those sorts of situations.
All right, anyone want to answer this question?
Sorry, everybody. I mean, Sanna, I guess we've run various flipped initiatives and it generates a whole buzz. I guess it's when we're talking about 100 staff, presumably that's a minority number of staff. And it's how do we scale up those things and understand the things, as was said in the chat, when it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, I think that, well, I guess that we probably have the same problem that how do you balance everything with this flipping the teaching. We have been concentrating on, rather than maybe at least in the beginning, the concentration was, for example, in the mathematics, so that we would get all the students to have one course in this flip and learn. And then when we found that it's actually working really well, we are kind of expanding it. But that was maybe one way of tackling that, so that some students don't get everything in flip mode and some students don't get anything. But yeah, I think that we are struggling with the same question.
But we know that the transition from high school to university is difficult. So now we have found that this flipped learning helps in this transition. So we are concentrating on these first year courses especially.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Johnson, for the question. I see that we've got a question for Sinead as well, and I want to hear a bit more from you as well. Can you tell anything about what kind of advantages that you see in your approach compared to standard student evaluation of courses?
Yeah, the reason this initiative kicked off was because it was a new course. So to, I suppose, get the students' perspective on their own learning was crucial for this particular program, because it was a postgraduate program. The students were very time limited as well, so making sure that everything was streamlined for the students was important, but also for the students to have that sense that their feedback lands somewhere, that it doesn't just go off into the cyber world and never be seen again, which is what a lot of the quantitative types of feedback, the Likert type scales, that's what was originally on the program in terms of satisfaction. There's no kind of information whether you know whether somebody likes something or not, but you don't know whether what was the issue, so you can't fix it. And for the tutors themselves, because again it was a new program and it was in collaboration with industry, it was very important then to see that all of the dots joined up, I suppose, for this one, and that the students had that authentic learning experience that they were looking for. In terms of the students, then there's huge benefits for them in terms of building this community of practice in an online world, because these students were fully online students, so wouldn't have access to meeting their peers in the other subgroups. They would have only had contact with their own. So that built a group cohesion as well across the whole the whole program. So it benefited them. It also helped them reflect, I suppose, on their learning. So it had huge benefits in terms of a deeper learning experience for them as well. Let me see, I don't know, there's so many other advantages over the traditional Likert type scales as well. It also, I suppose, it exposes the tutor a little bit in that they're asking students to, I suppose, critique their teaching style. So I mean, I suppose that has its own advantage in itself, is that the students and teachers then build a better rapport with each other then, and a mutual, I suppose, respect for each other's perspectives.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting to hear. I really understand that the feeling of a closed loop for everybody, that you can see what you can see the feedback land, is really important for everybody involved to motivate as well to give this feedback.
Yeah.
I was wondering as well, you mentioned this was a pilot project in the artificial intelligence program, if I remember correctly. Do you have any plans to roll this out further? Do you think this can be applied in other programs as well?
Yeah, I mean, the students' partners approaches can be used in different contexts. So this was particularly for feedback, but you could also extend that then to co-creation of their learning, and you could extend it to assessment, or even defining the learning outcomes of a program. So there's this huge scope for widening this particular project itself, and the plan now is to develop a community of practice out of this, a kind of building a national level community of practice, which has been done in other institutions as well, or sorry, in other countries as well.
Well, I'm for one very interested to see how that rolls out and what impact that can have. All right, I see that just another question what's popped up, but we actually have to go to the next presenter, so we're going to keep that aside, and it's next Q&A. If we have time, then we can still come back, and otherwise I'm sure that there will be other ways to engage as well. So thank you so much, Sinead and Mary. Thank you, Sanna and Ayla. Thank you, Neill, for your very interesting presentations and the lively discussion. I see in the chat as well that your presentations have sparked some discussion and interest, so that means that they were very successful, I think. So thank you so much. And now it's time to go to the next three presenters that we have in this session. First of all, we go to Barcelona. We have Oscar Núñez Bucio from the University of Barcelona in Spain, and he will present us the University of Barcelona strategy to promote the quality of teaching through faculty innovation and improvement projects. Oscar, it's up to you.
So thank you very much. So what I'm going to do is to present University of Barcelona strategy, as has been said, to promote the quality of teaching through faculty innovation and improvement projects. So You know that teaching and learning are part of the mission and strategy of the university because we need to form students as active and responsible citizens. Obviously, for that purpose, teaching and learning need to be focused on the students. But at the university, we also need to establish connections between teaching, learning, and research. So we need also to check for adequate resources and structures. And something that is going to be very important, all these systems need to be incorporated into the cycle of continuous improvement because we need to assure the institutional quality on teaching and learning. But we don't need to forget teachers. So we need to form also our teachers through active promotion, through teacher professional development and training. So at the end, we will require the participation of the entire community. Since several years ago, University of Barcelona created the program of research, innovation and improvement of teaching and learning, which is what we call the RINDA program. And in here, we created teaching innovation projects, which are innovation actions developed by the teachers. We have about 100 active projects annually, and this involves about 900 teachers, which are involved in the implementation of these innovation actions. But we also have created teaching innovation groups, which are a group of teachers that aims to generate and to maintain teaching and learning innovation initiatives. At the moment, we have 100 accredited teaching and innovation groups with the direct involvement of about 1,500 teachers. The analysis of these RINDA program actions allow us to detect shortcomings and opportunities in a new context of action that is becoming a priority for our university, which are the faculties. So since 2018, a new strategy in order to strengthen these existing innovation projects and groups was created. Is what we call these institutional projects for the promotion of teaching quality. So we have established a catalog of innovation lines which have active learning strategies where the teachers receive formation, advice, and support in order to incorporate them into their practice. So at the end, what we have is an advisor, which is a specialist on this active learning strategy, and a group of teachers that want to employ these active learning strategies in their classrooms. And all together work through a counseling and guidance model based on lesson study and clinical supervision strategies. The University of Barcelona has around 16 faculties, and up to now, the faculties that has been involved in these institutional projects are the Faculty of Biology, Pedagogy, Chemistry, Economics and Business, and Medicine and Health Science in 2 different centers, the Belvice and Clinic Hospital. And the active learning strategies that have been employed on these innovation actions are flipped room in both modalities, just-in-time teaching and team-based learning, case study, problem and project-based learning, gamification, which implies the use of game design elements, simulation, and the assessment of competencies. Around 300 teachers have been involved in these institutional projects. But you know that in 2020, we have this COVID pandemic situation, and that the university needed to adapt to a new teaching situation. So we created the RINDA Blended Learning Project, where we adapted these active learning strategies to teach in an online platform by the use of hybrid classrooms, asynchronous, synchronous lessons, and so on. And then this project gives advice to around 150 teachers. How does it work? Let's see an experience example. Here you have an overview of the team-based learning strategy. It's not the aim of this presentation to explain how this flipped room strategy works, but you know that in flipped room, we have some work that the students do before the class, and then some work that is done in the class, and so on. What is important for our system is that we will have an advisor, which is an expert of this team-based learning strategy, and a group of 10 to 15 teachers that belong to different faculties, to different areas, that are teaching on different subjects and to grade or master courses. And then all together are working in order to improve this learning strategy. And how it's done? All the teachers receive a formation on the team-based learning strategy, and then they do a first implementation in their subject. And once all the teachers has done this first implementation, they work together in a reflective experiential learning model. So through the experience of the advisor and all the teachers, they share perceptions on the experience, they evaluate the experience, and through a reflection process, they propose changes or improvements to this implementation in order to be applied in the future actions or experiences. And then they do a second implementation of this team-based learning strategy, which is the improved one. Once all the teachers have done this second implementation, they begin again this reflective experiential learning model cycle in order to evaluate the experience. How we are going to continue with these institutional projects for the promotion of teaching quality in the next year. So what we want to do is just to propose a program frame, develop it in collaboration with each of the faculties. So we need to establish short and medium-term objectives based on the active learning strategies that become a priority for each faculty according to their necessities, according to their requirements. So we will need to evaluate the resources and also the required indicators in order to evaluate the project performance. We need also to generate instruments and procedures to improve teaching and learning quality through these teaching, innovation, improvement actions, but also we need to disseminate the generated knowledge, not only between our faculties and within our university, but also we need to disseminate the generated knowledge to other universities. Also, we need to establish not only qualitative, but also quantitative indicators in order to assess the achievement of these established objectives. And obviously, we don't need to forget our teachers, so we need to invest in the training and formation of our teachers, and this peer training model could be a good idea. And with this, I finish my presentation. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Oscar, for this very interesting presentation. Again, a reminder, you're free to ask any questions to Oscar and to the other presenters through the Q&A tab, and make sure also to clearly identify to whom you address this question so that we know who to ask this to. All right, next we are going to go to the UK. We have Jonathan Shaw and Daniel Villar-Onrubia presenting the Coventry EdTech ecosystem about learning in a post-digital world.
Thanks, Ruben. It looks like I did the typical mishap of double clicking on my microphone. Well, first of all, really disappointed that we didn't get to meet with some sun. As many people have said, I think we've got some wind over in our side of the world at the moment. But today, Daniel and we both work in the Disruptive Media Learning Lab, and we're going to share with you some of the work that we do around education innovation, which is focused, I guess, in the breadth of the tools that we have at Coventry University. We're going to cover how this began as a transformation, why we see this as a key means and mechanism for improving student engagement, to share with you briefly kind of the lessons learned through this early adoption work that we undertake and leading that change across our faculties, and hopefully the intention that we're always looking for what does that long-term impact look like. To give some context as to Coventry University, we are understood as an education group. We have multiple campuses that have multiple modes of delivery. So up in Scarborough, down in Dagenham, in Greenwich, in London, in 2 campuses in Coventry, and September last year, we opened a campus in Poland. We have around 50,000 students, so we're regarded as quite a large organisation, hence some of the questions I was asking earlier in terms of how do we deal with this when we're trying to look at scale. Coventry University Online was born in 2017 and has subsequently gone on to win various kind of awards for our MOOC offering. I think it's important to understand when we're thinking about teaching and learning that we are no longer in this sense of what is digital. Digital is there and digital is around us. There is no longer this belief, or we shouldn't be believing in this sense of an oppositional stance. You know, the difference between that's Oscar. The difference between the kind of the vinyl record as a material object and the MP3s that we hear and we stream on a regular basis. These things are all and part of how we need to understand what a hybrid education might be. we have taken what we see as an ecosystem approach rather than this sense of supplier and contractor. Knowing, as we've heard with some of the presentations, this world of technology is constantly evolving and will constantly evolve at a rapid pace that large organizations and institutions will seek to struggle to keep up with. So for us back in 2019, we said we no longer want a learning management system, a virtual learning environment, something which seeks to distance itself from the very nature and culture of how learning is born and how students and staff live their lives. So we went into partnership with an organization called Aula, a young edtech startup. And for us, there's a number of decisions that I think become key in who we decide to partner with and how. So we seek to have best in class. So it's a partnership-based approach, that these tools need to be and must be interoperable. We can't afford this lag of 3 months, of 6 months to decommission a technology when we have 3 intakes a year, or for some of our our courses and campuses, they have 6 intakes. We're already run halfway through an academic year. They need to be focused on being user-centric and, importantly, insight-driven. What we're keen to understand here is that richer picture of what is happening through the behaviors as much as what somebody perhaps tells us after the event. The other key component of this is these tools will need to be iterative. It isn't simply that they exist in a fully formed manner. They will evolve, and we need to be part of driving that roadmap. To give you a sense of some of our more recent kind of works, I've just mentioned Aula. The key thing with Aula is that this was very much about having how would we describe it? A learning experience platform first, where high quality digital learning is seeking to increase and make engagement easier and more readily available for our students. They're all mobile first, as we have with peer-to-peer mentoring. So an at-scale approach so that every student from day one that they join the university has that ability to reach out and to be supported by one of their peers. It's developmental, so it also seeks to transition them into that next phase. Commentary Domains is focused very much on that digital fluency of our students and of our staff, of how do we best support through the provision of web publishing platforms that they can then also take away when they leave. An exciting one that we're doing at the moment is working with Engagely, where we know that Teams and Zoom has not provided our staff with the necessary feedback loop as to what is happening inside of their classrooms that is a natural part of delivery in a classroom environment. So working with these partners who co-founded Coursera and the likes is a really exciting opportunity to look at an inclusive space for and purposefully designed space to move things forwards. Over to you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So 2019 was also an important year because it's when we distilled the kind of Coventry pedagogical approach into 4 key principles, and these principles, they underpin all the learning experiences that take place in Coventry, whether they are online, offline, or hybrid. And obviously this informed all the work that was happening in terms of reconfiguring our EdTech ecosystem. So, I mean, that means that all our learning experiences are supposed to be based in active participation. They require applying knowledge and skills in authentic scenarios. They also promote peer learning for all. And that was kind of also quite an important moment for us as an institution. Yes, to mention also all this transformation, the focus was not just on the technology. We were working equally with the community, the capacity building. We kind of embraced different feedback loops and iterative processes to shape what was happening. So it wasn't just with the technology, it was primarily working with our community. So we involved different stakeholders across our group. We work with academics, obviously, also with the students and with support staff. And something that we thought that was important to invest time and resources was also to kind of bring together all the expertise that we had distributed across different pockets, if you say. And something we did, for example, was to create this teaching knowledge base, which is a resource, an online resource gathering all the information that you need to know as an academic in order to engage effectively with this range of tools and platforms. And we decided also to make it available to anyone as an open educational resource. So if you check this website, you will be able to kind of understand the breadth and the variety and have access to all the information and skills that you should have as an academic in Coventry University group. So we don't have much time left. Obviously, we wanted to share with you a few key takeaways. So things that informed our transformation. And the first one is start with your values and pedagogical philosophy. So as I said before, we condensed this in 4 very clear points. Then you have to communicate, and engage with all your stakeholders as soon as possible. So don't wait too much. Also working with whole teams and diverse teams. Then, as Jonathan said, engage with your edtech suppliers as partners and let them have a voice in the conversation. And then, last but not least, you have to evaluate, iterate, and repeat the processes to refine everything. We also save some things that we advise you not to do, but Jonathan, maybe we should keep them for the discussion in case people are interested in learning what not to do.
Sounds good.
So thank you so much, and sorry it took perhaps a few more time than expected.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan and Daniel, for this very interesting presentation, and I'm sure there will be some questions about this as well. All right, and then we can go, last but not least, I'm certain, to Portugal. Manuel João Costa from the University of Minho in Portugal will present us the metamorphosis of an interinstitutional faculty development program from before the pandemic until after the pandemic. So, to you, Manuel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we hear you.
Okay. So thank you, Ruben. So my goal in this presentation is not so much describe step by step in detail what we were doing, but it's pretty much describing the process of what happened to our idea of teacher development throughout the pandemic. So my colleagues are not with me, but here's their picture. And our concept for teacher training is actually a challenge-driven concept. What does this mean? It means that we came up with the idea that you have to work with teachers to give them support so that they can have a transformation project that meets some individual need. So we had this idea of the Scholarship Plus retreat. It would be before the pandemic. We did it as a retreat in which we worked with a number of teachers in which they would think about where they were at, estado atual contexto, that's in Portuguese, where they would like to be, estado futuro, what are their challenges and problems, problema e objetivos, and how do they think to go about their problems. And so what we would do was we would think about an institutional strategy that we would have these colleagues working together to devise a transformation plan for the course. And we thought we would be doing this interinstitutionally. So we've been doing this with 2 universities, the University of Minho and the University of Aveiro. And in one of the editions, we tried to do with the colleagues in Brazil as well. We've done that face-to-face in 2019, and we've run 5 editions, 3 of them fully online, and 1 hybrid edition. The challenge-driven, project-based process was always there. We co-designed that between the 2 universities. We started to design that at the University of Minho but then we really found that it would be a very interesting move, since we had 2 universities, to have colleagues working together in designing this process. From the 3rd edition onwards, we included students in the design of the process. And since this was a challenge-based process in which people had a project to design, we included students as facilitators of teacher development. And so we are now working with teams in which teachers and students work with those participants who are doing their transformation process. And I'm not going to have time to go over this, but this is one piece of another elements that we conceive as important for teaching enhancement in our universities. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a brief context and then go over 7 steps, which I believe are the key 7 steps to think about the online on-site and what are we going to do next. So the context, of course, is Portugal. We have fine pastries, we have lots of wonderful things, but learning and teaching is not our really proud investment in the country. So there's no actual national policies, little support for teaching enhancement in higher education. The parity of research is really, really low. The career promotion, career development, application, research really dominates still in my country. Nevertheless, some institutions, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, have been doing work internally to develop teaching and learning centers or teams alike. And my university, the University of Minho, in which I am in the rectorate team and I'm responsible for this process, and the University of Aveiro, where my colleague Sandra Soares is also responsible, we started to do this work of developing learning and teaching teams or units in 2017, 2018, so before the pandemic. So we had a nice institutional context. Our center at the IDU Minho, and I'm going to put a view, I just put on the chat box the links to our 2 websites. We started in 2017. The key thing about our center is that it's not a center. It's actually a collaborative team of teachers across the units of the university. We can talk about that later. So the first step is this idea center. But of course, this first step has had an initial idea in 2017, which was we were going to set a full number of courses so that people would take the courses and then go back to their own life and then apply perhaps what they were doing. So it's this jab idea that you put a course in and people take the course and then they move out and they use what you give them. Well, 1 year later, we were kind of concluding that those who were showing up for the courses were the usual suspects, normally the teachers who are most committed to, and therefore maybe the ones that did not need it. So we had to think of these onion layers. We had our first layer in what could you do differently to actually engage other onion layers in the university. And what we thought about is that we needed to have we needed to make explicit that we were going to go peer-to-peer. And so the fact that we were a number of teachers from across different institutes at the university, of course, helped, but our mindset sort of changed. We kind of thought, let's stop giving courses only, and let's think of a context, let's think of a process that we can put people together. And this is what led to the idea of this Docência Mais, the retreat, and you can see photos of the retreat in 2019, which was the first year we did it, with about 80 participants, 17 hours. It was actually 2.5 days. You see on the bottom right hand side the challenge, and so people would start the retreat, and then 2.5 later they would have to present to everyone to comment their plans. But the most important part, of course, was what was happening in between. And what was happening in between, and you can hear and you can see that in green, is that there were, of course, talks, there were, of course, presentations, but there were many moments in which people met together and worked together. The last 3 stops, interinstitutional, very important. Teachers across the 2 universities had the same issues. They met colleagues of their own scientific area with interest and working together. So that was really, really good. When we went online, we were able to go from 80 participants to 200 participants. That didn't stop the idea of doing this collaborative work. And since edition 3, we involved students in the co-design. And that was really, really interesting. That was really, really important. I don't have time to go and show you numbers, but I'll just show you two. So we at the end of these training sessions, and we did this on the four most recent editions. We asked a couple of things to people, including, do you think you're gonna use what you just produced so far? And as you can see, the pink yes, I'm going to use it next year. About student involvement from edition 3. So this is the answers of people commenting on the perceived relevance of facilitators, teachers, and facilitators, students. And you'll see that they're pretty much alike. And it's actually interesting to find that some participants wanted, when in their open comments, wanted to have more moments with students. They thought that students could even be more involved. So this will be a summary that I will not have time to read through. But what I would just end, because my time is up, right, Ruben?
Yes, yeah, it is.
What I was just going to say is that this idea in 2019 that we started is really now upscaled across the universities, and we are seeing initiatives that are happening within the institution that we are not organizing. We are seeing sharing sessions, from the biological engineering department, and people are really interestingly following this idea of peer-to-peer participation. So I hope that was a sweet presentation, and now we have to think about the future, and that's perhaps part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel, and also thank you for making us all hungry with pictures of the very tasty pastries throughout your presentation. All right, we have time for some questions to these last three presenters. So I invite you all to turn on your camera or show yourself on the screen. And I also invite, again, still all of the audience to submit any questions in the Q&A box. We've got a few already, but feel free to send some and to vote on the questions that have been submitted so far as well. I'm going to start with a few questions for Oscar. Oscar, first of all, I see a question from Matt Schoolhead on how the teachers were involved in this program. Did they have to sign up? Was it voluntary? Were they required to participate by some people within the in the institution? Can you expand on this?
Yeah. Generally, teachers participate voluntarily. It's not mandatory to belong to any group, innovation group of these innovation projects. But it's important to take into account that sometimes if the faculty detects a necessity, then they can ask some professors in order to get involved on innovation. For example, I don't know, we have now in the Faculty of Chemistry a problem with the evaluation process of practical courses, because we get very different grades depending on the teachers that are in the course. Okay, there are courses with high grades and other courses with not so high. So we need to evaluate how we are evaluating our students. So then what we do is we propose to do an innovation project, and this institutional innovation project, and then we try to check different evaluation strategies to compare and so on. But normally, teachers participate voluntarily.
All right, thanks. That's very interesting. Another question for you from Bernard Hasenknopf. Does the project include any recognition for the teachers who participate? Is it financially for their career advancement in any way?
Yeah, mainly the recognition is from the career advancement. So there is not that direct financial recognition, although there is an indirect one. Because in Spain, university teachers go through an evaluation process, a teacher evaluation process every 5 years, which is also voluntary. It's not mandatory to do it. But if you go through this evaluation process, then you get an increase in your salary. So at the end, all these innovation projects are also taken into account on these evaluation processes. So it's a way also to engage professors to want to improve their teaching abilities and the learning process of their students. Yeah.
Okay. Another question for you from Ivre is, do you have any formal process to accredit these teaching and innovation groups?
Yeah, actually we accredit the innovation groups every 3 years. We are doing this at the moment. And how we do it is that we check on the previous 3 years all the projects that the innovation group, or the members of the innovation group have been involved, and also if they have done presentations or dissemination, or they have published some results on journals and so on. And according to that, then they get or not the accreditation. The important thing about that is that as I commented, we have around 100 innovation groups, but those that are on the 40 best positions, the group gets a budget in order to carry on their innovation projects. They get a small budget in order to implement their innovation projects in their subjects. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Again, reminder to everybody that you're able to submit some questions in the Q&A box and to vote on them as well. I've got a question for you as well, still, Oscar. How are students involved in to provide feedback in this loop? Because you provided this loop of redesign, having a first design and a second design. I was wondering whether at any point in this process are the feedback from students involved in?
Yeah, actually the students are involved even in the projects. Sometimes there are some innovation projects where we also include the students in order to check also which are going to be the activities or the process we are going to use to evaluate them. But also the projects includes questionnaires in order to get the opinion on the different processes that we are using. Think that these projects, the duration of these projects is for 2 years, because the implementation is done on different courses. So the total duration is for two years. And we also do this kind of questionnaires about opinion of the students about how the process is going on. So they are also involved, not only to check the results, but also sometimes in the design of the activities that are going to be used on the projects.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. I have a question in the Q&A box for Jonathan and Daniel. It's a question from Laura Pulahak. You mentioned that you have a lot of collaboration with edtech companies and you use a large number of those platforms. How do students themselves find it to navigate through all of these tools and platforms?
Indeed. Daniel, shall I start and then maybe follow in? First of all, thanks, Laura, for the question. I think the starting point I would say here is that all institutions have a vast array of technologies that they're working with. Whether they're intentional or whether they're incidental. I think what we're saying here with our approach, and I think I looked up in preparations for this, we have 500 as an institution active applications that staff and students are expected to navigate. Some may be in the back end, some may be in the front end. For teaching and learning, we have 39. What we're seeking to do as the approach of the ecosystem is understand how do they work together. So rather than having this approach where some staff teach here, some staff teach here, it becomes a preference-based model, which, as I perhaps indicated, our students are telling us they find confusing, and our staff are equally telling us they find confusing, is by taking this approach and by involving them in a collective team-based approach with staff, students, academic developers, educational technologists, we're evolving our digital fluency, so to understand what are the core tools and what are the core competencies that we're expecting our staff to sort of work with. So, I mean, Daniel's leading on that project, and I don't know if you also want to share how that works for our students with the course that they commenced last year.
Yes, well, I also wanted to say that we haven't shared, but we have a kind of a structure of concentric circles to visualize our edtech ecosystem, where we identify some core tools which everyone is supposed to use, and then we have also kind of an outer circle with a kind of supported tools, and then depending on the disciplines, depending on where you are teaching and learning, you would probably have some preferences, and you can choose between different alternatives. In terms of kind of building capacity, we are working in parallel to kind of build the capacity across our academics and our students. And what Jonathan mentioned is that last year we launched kind of self-directed course introducing to our students all the basic digital skills that they are supposed to have right at the beginning in order to make the most of their experience as a Coventry student. And that involves getting familiar with all these core tools that they will be using, but also other type of attitudinal kind of skills and knowledge, which are more generic.
Okay, thanks. I think, like you mentioned, is a problem that many institutions face with this abundance of tools that everybody has to navigate. And it's interesting to hear your thoughts on how to put these together and aim for some digital fluency, like you said. Another question for you is from Matt Schoolhead. He sees the attraction of combining several flexible and modern tools instead of having one core big learning management system. That can be a vulnerable structure as well, having those many partners, and I think as well many young startup partners. How do you reflect on this?
Again, Daniel, do you want me to? I think Manuel may have fallen off his chair. Yeah, no, I think Matt's. I think it's a really it's a key consideration. I think one of the things that we have found, I think with this approach, and we were previously using Moodle, and I think as an institution we were quite an early adopter of virtual learning environments. What we, I think, found is we became the problem ourselves. Because students use that platform, what we did is we just put more and more and more and yet more into that platform. So suddenly one platform became a space where it really wasn't clear what is it we're using it for. What happened is we knew students logged into it each and every day because they had to. Therefore, we just chucked everything at them. So it's almost like a fast train running down at our students each and every day. What we're trying to do with our approach of the ecosystem, and again, please remember we're early in this journey, is we as an institution and our senior leaders have acknowledged and have taken the decision that we want to work in this space, which does have risk attached to it. But through that sense of working in partnership is, as long as we are clear, as Daniel said in our principles, what the challenges and what the problems are that we're seeking to address, often taking that and working in partnership with fresh eyes, with people who are not bound by the way that we did it before, it gives us a much better understanding. I think my other point that I think maybe if I might just make is, I think when we're looking at some of the initiatives that some colleagues have shared today and we heard yesterday, is often if we're working purely at that level with educators to support them, for the last 8 years, there's often been a sense that we're calling in favors. You're trying to work with those who are keen, who are acknowledging they've got a problem, or there's something that they're trying to solve. But ultimately, you end up with this sort of sad heart because you're potentially adding to their problem. So again, by taking an ecosystem-based approach, we're trying to look at that higher level to understand their needs, but look at the systems more holistically, so that we're not just putting our finger over a hole in the bath. We're actually looking at, is it the bath the right thing for them to be sat in? Dreadful analogy in wind and rain, but hey. Daniel.
No. Yeah, very interesting. And I see in the chat that many people are facing the same the same problem. So however you put it, I think it's very interesting to see how you attack this problem, even though you're early in the journey as well. All right, maybe I've got a question for Manuel as well still. Manuel, you mentioned that you involve students as facilitators in the learning of the teachers, and you really involve students in many ways in this learning and teaching innovation track. Can you expand on how you do this having students be the facilitators of the teachers' learning?
Absolutely. So what we do is very simple. We ask them to play like if they were students, just to be like themselves. And so what we do is that we get students involved with dyads, and so we got dyads of a teacher and a student facilitator following participant. And so in the sessions in which the discussions are about my personal project, they would have some sort of a expertise from the side of the teacher facilitator, and they would have the student vision and the student input from the part of the student. So we do not have, for example, any formal training for students to do this. we normally rely on the student association to actually advise and suggest names to us that we can work with. And so it's very informal in the way that we do it in terms of how it happens.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Can you maybe also say a bit about how you mentioned that the center is really not a center for teaching and learning, but rather collaborative space with teachers as peers. Can you say about how this works and how you find the teachers engaged to really take the lead on this initiative?
So in Portugal, the higher education space in terms of regulations, curiously enough, do not have a formal place for a teaching and learning center. So it's an issue that we have within our structure. So we're working on that to create that space, and we could have a teaching center. But what happened was that when we set up this idea team, was that we wanted to get people who were already enticed and involved on their own basis in developing enhancement of teaching. Some of them were experts nationally in some approaches, project-based, for example, approaches in engineering schools. And so what we did was that we called these people to come together and help us to actually start to enhance teaching across the university. And the fact is that we've been meeting. Some people have, circulated. There has been people who left. So there are people who came in, but we've been doing pretty much weekly meetings on Wednesdays since 2018, and we still do not have a structure. So as Jonathan was saying, these people, the recognition that they have, you could question: is that worth the workload? Because it's quite some workload. I think the interesting thing about this is that during the pandemic, from my conversations with my colleagues on the rectorate team and elsewhere, I think we were probably the most engaged group across the university. Everybody was really, we have to do this. How can we do it? And the partnership with the other institution was also very, very stimulating, because then you had the other colleagues coming together, exchanging ideas. So we're still going very informal, Ruben, but we are quite a number of people. So for example, we have something like 1,200 teachers in the university. Over 200 have done this Docência Mais process, and we have a few thousand contacts in other initiatives that we're running. And it's this team.
Yeah, I always find it very inspiring to hear how you this informal structure drives this innovation within your university, even though you have this limited the funding and regulatory place for it, but it really does make a change. All right, thank you so much. We're at the end of our session, so thank you so much to Manuel, Daniel, Jonathan, and Oscar for your last 3 presentations, the answers to these questions, and also thank you to our 3 previous speakers as well. I hope, and I'm actually confident from it when I see the chat and when I saw those questions, that these presentations sparked some interest and sparked some discussion. So thank you very much. This was the end of it.
A big thank you to your excellent chairing of the session too. I think often it gets forgotten about the people who help bring it together. So thank you for you.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan. Okay, this was it, and I hope we see you all at the last session here of the Learning and Teaching Forum. Thank you so much, and see you later.
Thanks, guys. Take care.